Hey guys, Luna here with a new video for the channel. Today we have yet another review, and this time it's quite a surprise review. We're talking about Petrol Girls with Baby. And honestly, the only reason why I've heard this album is because it was recommended to me by a friend, and I saw that Anthony Fantano reviewed the album as well. And he was wearing a yellow shirt, and if you know him, you know that means the album was at least good. So I decided to give the album a try, and honestly, I was amazed by it. So much actually that I went on and listened to the two previous albums released by these wonderful musicians. So yeah, here it is. Now, the first time I listened to this album, I honestly had such flashbacks from that beautiful punk rock scene back in the late 70s. The aggressiveness, the distorted vocals, everything on it felt so familiar. But these four women really do it in a way that it sounds fancy, it sounds somewhat smart. I don't know how to explain it or if that makes sense, but it feels like they're actually saying something. Usually in this type of albums, it was just lyrics to annoy people, lyrics to make you feel angry. Instead, they're actually saying some things that matter and saying some things that are relevant in today's society, and they're not saying it to piss off anyone. They're actually just angry, and not only for the lyrics, not only for what they're saying, but for the way that they're saying it is also really convincing. Production wise, this album has a lot of problems, a lot of flaws. Sometimes the guitar sounds too loud, sometimes the voice sounds too low for my taste. I've listened to a lot of punk albums that are way better produced than this one, and even those albums from the late 70s have way better production than this one, It's something that caught my ear multiple times, and I've listened to this record a couple of times already, so it's not something that I've heard the first time. Every time I hear it, I catch the same thing again and again in the same tracks. It just doesn't feel like it was fully developed or fully, I feel like this album somewhat wasn't ready to be released. But to be honest, I can't really make this album suffer from the fact that the production isn't really great, because many of the punk albums released, or many of the most popular punk albums, have the same issue. Actually being underproduced is somewhat a label from this kind of music. It doesn't really make the album worse. It's just something that it's worth noting. The production isn't really the best thing from this album. It's not really bad either. It's just not great. What did bother me was the vocal performance. And the reason why it bothered me is because sometimes this woman goes off on a track and you can feel the aggressiveness, the anger, everything that she's saying it with passion. But 50% of the time she sounds like a 16-year-old girl who's angry because her mother didn't bought her a Mercedes for her 16th birthday. And this is not exaggerating, her tone of voice sometimes is a bit annoying or really annoying. Only sometimes, and actually it's this same tone of voice that makes some of the tracks feel amazing, like Baby, I Had an Abortion, one of the best vocal performances I've heard from a female this decade. Because, as you may have guessed, many of the things in this album are protest songs. Another label from the punk scene, they're constantly doing protests. And even if you don't agree with the lyrical concept on this album, and I'll talk about it later, you can still feel the anger, So political issues or political beliefs should never be a reason for you to take points away from an album. So even if you don't agree with what, she's saying on the tracks, you can still, empathize with the anger, with how annoyed she sounds by having to say this again and again and again, especially on the track We Fight for Our Lives, when she's constantly talking about how she as a female is fighting every day and in every situation because it seems like society is out to get them. So yeah, that's the reason why the vocal performance annoys me so much. So many of the songs here could have been performed in a better way that I know that she can perform, because as I said, 50% of the tracks are performed in one of the best ways possible. Other than that, there's not a bad thing you can say about this album. Yes, sometimes the performance is annoying, and yes, the production isn't really that great, but both of these things are kind of forgivable since we're talking about a punk record. So yeah, it isn't really that big of a deal. Plus, the good thing about this album, the great thing about this album, outmatches everything bad this album can offer, and it's the songwriting. The songwriting, the pacing of the track, how the album is structured is great, amazing, the best thing by far. And it's the fact that, with this type of albums, with albums that are so loud, with albums that are so aggressive, you sometimes take the risk to make it boring or somehow numb at some point. Because if you're constantly listening to something loud, going off on and on and on and on, you can start to feel like there's nothing really going on, even though it's loud as fuck. You don't really mind it. Instead, it seems like this album was paced perfectly, and it was calculated to the point where as soon as you start to feel like the album is too loud, it settles down for a moment to then go off again. There's not a moment where you feel like you're receiving too much of anything. This album gives you the right amount at the right moment with the right amount of intensity. Compilation albums are often the safest option because you're using the greatest songs from that artist. Still, the compilation albums don't really work as a music album because they're not paced properly. In this album, that is not a problem at all. It seems like everything was calculated and everything was, everything was so precise. Every song in this album is necessary for the album to be what it is, except the intro, that 29 seconds of nothingness. Apart from that, everything else is essential, and the album wouldn't be the same without, even if you take one song out of the album, you fucked it all up because the pace is ruined. You'll need the whole thing, and it's great. Plus, this album has one of the best songs I've heard this year, and it's Baby, I Had an Abortion. Quite a title, okay? I know that the title of this song may be a bit offensive for some of you, but the thing is, fuck you. This song is amazing. The way this song sounds, how aggressive, the guitar work is amazing, the vocal performance is amazing, and overall, the drumming in this album is probably the most important thing on the record. There's many other songs that you definitely need to check out if you want like a small taste on how the album sounds before you get into the whole thing. Feed My Fire, for example, Preachers, Clowns, Unsettled. It's hard to pick one because every song, as I said, is essential. The whole thing is way better than the sum of its parts, and that is something that it definitely shows when an album is well structured. But yeah, if you don't want to waste your time and you want to see if you like this sort of style before you go into the album, listen to the track Baby, I Had an Abortion, by far the best from this album. Now, the lyrical concept from this album is often with feminist narratives, about abortion, rape, misogyny, and how the system fucks you up, blah, 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 this sort of things that, honestly, I don't really have a problem with any of these arguments. I do believe that in some areas, girls are not represented properly, especially with the abortion thing. I don't really know why this is still a conversation. It's not that I believe that it's a good idea to abort a baby. It's still something really fucked up, but I believe that something even more fucked up is forcing someone to have a baby that they don't want. Not really for the woman. I don't really give a fuck. I'm talking about the baby. Imagine that you grew up in a family where people don't like you. Is the thing inside her, the fetus, alive or not? I don't really give a fuck. The thing is, I don't think it's reasonable to bring a baby that it's unwanted. And the world has a lot of people on it. I don't really think we need more unwanted babies. There's a lot of them on the street already, so I don't think we need more. I understand you have your religion. I understand you may have, any other spiritual reasons why you don't like this abortion thing. For me, I think that the main focus should be the baby and how the baby's life is going to be. If it's not going to be good, if it's going to be unwanted, what? Get rid of it. That's it. But here, in tracks like the one I've said before, Baby, I Had an Abortion, I think that they're teasing people to just get annoyed. So even if I do agree with abortion, but I don't agree with the way these people, approach the theme, I still think the song is fucking amazing. In other words, even though I don't really like the lyrical concept of this album, this feminist narratives that I hear every day, I can't go to Instagram because feminism is there and racism is there, and just I can't go to TikTok because, again,
make abortion legal, Donald Trump is a piece of shit, Joe Biden is a piece of shit, I like Putin, I don't like Putin, Elon Musk is great, Elon Musk is not great. Black Lives Matter, all lives matter, LGBTQ plus I, LGBTQ, LGBT.
It's annoying, and when I listen to music, I don't really want this bullshit. But you know what? I'm here for the music, and the music bangs, and the delivery is flawless. This woman does a great job. Even if I don't agree with the message was received, and you know what? More power to it if that's how you feel. So yeah, this album is awesome, and in terms of rating, I'm giving this album an 8. That was it for today's video, guys. I really hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, go ahead and leave a like down below and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the videos that I upload. If you want me to do a review on another album, then go ahead and leave it down below in the comments and I'll make sure to fulfill your request as soon as possible. And with that being said, I really hope that I can see you guys soon with a new video. But until then, bye.